made a choice, thinking I'd be free, but that choice, it imprisoned me in my shame, till I stepped into the light of God's light, the healing began. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain, I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes, I will be silent no more. Love broke through to the heart of me, now the truth has come and set me free from the past. When I stepped into the light of God's love, forgiven at last, I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain, I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes, I will be silent no more. There is power in my story, freedom from this night. There is healing and forgiveness if we step into the light. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain, I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes, I will be silent no more. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain, I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes, I will be silent no
Well, hello. I'm Janet Morano, the Executive Director of Priest for Life. I also co-founded the Silent No More Awareness Campaign. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. And of course, you heard there our Silent No More theme song that was actually written exclusively for the campaign by Jamie Owens Collins, a big Christian singer. She it must have been in about 2005 or 6, when she first was heard of the early days of the campaign. She was so impacted by listening to these women, their testimonies, that she was inspired to write that song for us. So we always want to give a shout out to Jamie for doing that for us. It's amazing. Well, of course, joining me today on
Can you hear me,
Hi,
Patty?
Janet. Yes, I
Hi.
can.
So,
We're doing fine.
tell our people, when did you first give your testimony in Washington for the very first time? How long ago was that?
That was, I believe, 5 years ago when we had the Snowmageddon, when all that snow came and we all got snowed in.
Yeah, okay. So, but when did you first join the campaign itself to be Silent No More?
I joined the campaign in, I believe it was 2 years after I went to healing. and that was in 2009. So it was around 2011 that I joined the Silent
11.
No More.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you've been here almost a decade of
right.
giving your testimony publicly, of talking about your regret. So let's go back to, I want you to tell our people that about your story. I know you had not one but two abortions, but let's start
Right.
with the very first abortion. Tell them the circumstances, because I think people very often scratch their heads like, she had one, two abortions. But so let's start with the first abortion. Tell us what surrounded that first experience.
My first abortion, I had lived in a very small town, and I had moved to Seattle, where I was away from my mom and dad and their watchful eye. And of course, I got myself into trouble by partying and, doing what young ladies do back then. This was back in the 70s. And um, I ended up pregnant, and I just had started my career with the federal government, and I was climbing up the ladder of success. And I knew that if I was going to have a baby, it would probably influence my career. So I decided to have an abortion. Of course, back then I was a pro-choice feminist, so I didn't think anything of it. So I just went ahead and I said, well, the only answer is to get an abortion. I didn't even question it, which is
Right.
very sad now.
And just tell us about that first experience. How were you treated at the clinic? How did it happen? And then immediately following, did you feel relief? And kind of just give us a snapshot into that.
My first abortion was at an OBGYN. It wasn't at an abortion clinic. And when I went in, the doctor came in and he says, "Oh, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to have two interns watch while I do this as a teaching experience." And of course, I was
Wow.
mortified, but I wasn't going to say anything. I didn't know what to say, and I was too
Right.
intimidated, to say anything about it. So I just went ahead and let him do it. I mean, I felt bad enough as it was, being so exposed, obviously, and then having these other two men in the room at the same time.
Wow. And how old were you when you had that first abortion?
23.
Wow. Okay. And then immediately following, because some women will describe, like you said, you were pro-choice. So you must have had that feeling of like, whew, okay, that problem's over with. Was that your feeling?
I felt a relief at the time, but at the same time, I kind of felt empty. It was, it was kind of like a double-edged thing where, I knew I wasn't pregnant anymore, but I felt like something was missing. It was obviously, now I know it was my baby, but I did feel empty when I walked out of the doctor's office.
So then what led to you then choosing abortion the second time?
I didn't choose abortion the second time. I got pregnant again in 1980, and I wanted to keep that baby. And because my mom and dad didn't know about my first pregnancy. So the second time I was pretty well established in my career. I figured I'd be okay, financially to be able to support a child on my own. So I, called my mom and dad. I was all excited about it and said, I'm going to have this baby. And they convinced me to have the abortion because my mom and dad were fairly well known in their community in a small town, and they didn't want an unwed mother as a daughter, and it would stay in the family's reputation. And I didn't want to lose my mom and dad's support or their love. So I went ahead and had the abortion against my better judgment.
So how old were you now with the second abortion?
It would have been 28, probably around 28.
Yeah, so you were still single in your 20s. Were you living at home at the time?
No, I was living in Seattle, and my mom and dad lived in Eastern Washington. Yes.
So isn't that funny that you were living all the way in Seattle, but in this small town, they figured, oh my gosh, all the neighbors are going to know. So it was that shame factor played into it. And so you had your abortion in Seattle. They were in that small town. So they weren't even there to help you out or anything. They just kind of pushed you into it, said, you need to do this, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right. And then after that experience, how long did it take you till you began to say, oh, I feel terrible about this. I have to find help. What was that period of time like?
From the last abortion until it was probably right when I went to healing. I went through, after the second abortion, I was already a heavy drinker, But after my abortions, my alcohol consumption increased dramatically, and I became a
Oh,
raging alcoholic. And
wow.
I didn't know that it was because of the abortions, obviously, because I was, just stuffing everything, and I had almost forgotten about the abortions, but obviously, subconsciously I hadn't. And so it was 1997 when I realized I needed help because I was depressed, because I suffered from depression as well as the alcoholism, and I became very suicidal, and I got institutionalized. And when the admitting psychiatrist, when I went in there, it was kind of interesting that, the questions that they ask you on the checklist, they never once asked about abortion or anything along those lines. And so even then, I didn't really know it was an issue with my abortions. They said it was just depression, along with the alcoholism, and they went on and on about everything else, but they never brought up pregnancy loss of any type.
Right.
And then, so I have been sober since 1997, praise God, but I still felt there was still a cloud hanging over my head. And it wasn't until I converted to Catholicism in 2006 and heard a woman from Silent No More, Leslie Bernoli, from Silent No More, that I finally realized where my problems came from. But it still
Wow.
took me a while to sign up for healing because of the fear at that point, and the shame. I was embarrassed. I didn't know what they were going to think of me because I'd had 2 abortions, and it was, so the fear kind of took me away from getting healing more quickly. But thank God I did go, because it was a wonderful experience. I was finally be able to come to terms with what I had done, and there was a lot of freedom there because I finally realized, God had forgiven me, and I
Right.
was finally able to forgive myself, which was the hardest part to do.
Yeah. And so what healing program did you attend?
I went to a program called Rachel's Hope, which is under the Project Rachel umbrella,
Mhm.
and it was run by Rosemary Benefield, a very dear friend of mine, and their weekend retreat similar to Rachel's Vineyard
I see. Out in California then, right?
in
Because
San
at the
Diego.
time you were in San Diego when you
Yes,
received your
yes.
healing. Okay, so now fast forward, you got your healing, and you already connected with Leslie Bernoli, who
Right.
already was connected with Silent No More.
Hmm.
So, because people ask us this question all the time, as you know, with the campaign. Okay, they go through healing. Why do they want to come forward and tell their story? Explain that to people. What drives you, Patti, at this point in your life to still want to tell your story? What's the motivation for you?
There's 2 different motivations. One is to let people know that are considering abortions not to have them, and let them know that it's not an easy out, that there are going to be consequences. You might not feel them right away, but you will eventually suffer from, just like what I did with the depression, the alcoholism, drug abuse, all sorts of different things. And the second is to let women know that have had abortions that, all's not lost. You can get forgiveness from God. You can forgive yourself, and that there's
Right.
still hope out there for you.
Yeah. Well, and, I'm glad you brought about the forgiving yourself, because as you know, it's step one to accept God's forgiveness. That's the
Right.
first step. But then the harder step, isn't it, Patty, to forgive yourself? Isn't that
Yes.
the harder step? And that's where the healing programs really come in. I've had priests even say, like, oh, yeah, some women come and they keep repeating forgiveness and confession for the sin of abortion when they've already been
Right.
forgiven, but they haven't forgiven themselves yet.
Right.
And that's what the healing programs do, whether it's
Hmm.
Rachel's Vineyard or another program. It's showing them to get down that road to say, no, the Lord's forgiven you, but now you've got to forgive yourself. And that is the hardest step, isn't it?
It absolutely. And
Yeah.
sometimes I still find myself falling into that.
That
I'll
trap.
get angry all over again, and that getting into
Yeah.
that trap. And because it's always going to be there. We can't turn the clock back. We can't undo
Yeah.
what we did. We have to
Right.
move forward, but sometimes
Mhm.
and then we have to just fall back and regroup and go back to what we had learned through healing.
Exactly. And of course, I know in addition to coming to Washington or up in San Francisco to give your testimony, you're quite a busy bee all year round, right, in your community. I know you left San Diego and you came to Florida, And you hit the ground running. I know you take your I regret my abortion sign and you go out in front of the abortion clinic in Pensacola, and you're standing there with the 40 Days for Life people when they're praying, and you're there praying, and you're hoping, right, that a woman will approach you to talk to you.
Right.
Tell us about some of the women that you have had that opportunity to share in front of an abortion clinic.
The women that when I've had to share in front of abortion clinics, I haven't had many that have come up, from going into the abortion clinic, that, they've not come to me. But I've had women that have been praying outside of the abortion clinics that have had abortions and have been afraid to talk about it.
Right.
And so they get the information from me. The only confrontations I've ever had, and I call them confrontations because they were, is like when we were in front of the Supreme Court, when we have the pro-choice people that are sitting there chanting and trying to keep us quiet. Right,
Yeah.
right. So,
well, but Patty, I don't think you'll ever know this until this side of heaven. The women who saw you standing there with your I regret my abortion sign and left. Because we do hear that so many women coming that day, they're so conflicted. They don't really want to have that abortion. And sometimes they're praying, God, give me a sign. If I'm not supposed to do this, give me a sign. And Patty, I'm telling you right now, you are a sign. And I'm sure there have been many, many women who just turned and left because of you standing there, your courage to stand there. But I also want to talk to you about Pensacola. You were in the news, Pensacola abortion clinic, just the other day. Tell everyone what's been happening there at the abortion clinic in Pensacola with the pro-lifers who are actually there for 40 Days for Life, and you're there with your I regret sign. Paint the picture of what's been going on.
We was last Thursday, my husband and I went to pray along with 40 Days for Life, and of course I brought my sign, and we got there a little bit early, and there were these people starting to get out of their vehicles, and they had these masks on and these dark clothes on and drums, and getting ready to basically wreak havoc on us that were praying. And they were devil worshipers.
Wow.
And oh my God, it was frightening. I could actually, Janet, I could feel the evil there. It permeated the air. It was that heavy. And when the 40 Days for Life people, showed up for the rally, they the gals that were devil worshipers were actually gyrating disgustingly in front of the priests, in front of young children.
Oh,
and then
terrible.
When we were trying to sing songs and pray, they were beating drums and trying to be as obnoxious as possible. And of course, the news media didn't cover what they had done. They just basically lied and said that, we were harassing the poor women that were going into the clinic. And you know as well as I do, we do not harass anybody.
No.
We're prayerful. I've
been out in front of abortion clinics all over this country with people, whether it's 40 Days for Life or the local pro-lifers. I hate to tell everyone, but when 40 Days for Life ends Palm Sunday weekend, there are those of us who are out in front of the abortion clinics all year round, not just during 40 days. And I've been out there winter, spring, summer, fall, and nobody screams at the women. No one yells at the women. They're there praying peacefully. There's always a couple of sidewalk counselors who will get a little bit closer to the path if they can of the women. They'll have a little flyer or a brochure to try to hand them and say, I could take it for, one time I was out, I can tell you the story. I was in Indiana, and I was with these pro-lifers, and we actually had a very strange situation because of the bubble zone law there. The clinic was over there, and there was a parking lot, and then we were at the edge of the parking lot. That's where we were allowed to stand. And so it was very difficult because the cars would come into the parking lot and park. We couldn't kind of intercept them because they would go straight to the abortion clinic. But on this one occasion, I was visiting as a speaker that night at a banquet, so I came out to the abortion clinic during the day. And this young girl gets out of a car with apparently her mom and her boyfriend. And all of a sudden, she sits down on the pavement by their parked car. And I talked to the person next to me who's from Indiana. I said, listen, I'm not from Indiana. So what am I going to do? I don't know about no bubble zone law. I'm going to talk to that young girl. And they said, are you sure? I said, yeah, watch me. I went up and I said, are you feeling okay? And she said, oh, no, I'm feeling nauseous. I said, well, maybe before going into that clinic there, you might want to come over here with me. I could get you some ginger ale. When you're nauseous, ginger ale is really good. And the mother went, yeah, all right, let's go. Let's go get the ginger ale. So, and here's the funny story. In order to get to the ginger ale, we had to pass the pregnancy center that was there. And so as we were going to get the ginger ale, we went in, I got her the ginger ale, we come back out. And I said, you know what? You're about to go into that abortion clinic and you that medical clinic there, and you're going to pay money, right? And she goes, yeah. I said, to kind of fix your problem, right? She says, yeah. I said, you see this door in here? She goes, yeah. Do you know they give a free pregnancy test in there for free, and they have some free help? How about we go in there first? And then you could still go across the parking lot if you want, but let's go in there first. Do you know they did it?
Wow.
And so praise God, they stayed there and they helped them, and they never made it into the clinic because you could see the girl and the boyfriend were very conflicted, and it looked like the mother was kind of pushing her in this direction. But once the pregnancy center laid it out to the mother that you really don't have, your daughter doesn't have to do this. And even if you want to make an adoption plan, and then suddenly the mom went, well, I don't want my grandchild adopted out. Oh, but a few minutes ago, you were going to have your grandchild aborted. So it came this close to that grandchild being aborted, you know? And so that's just one example. I mean, I have seen so many wonderful people in the pro-life movement all over this country. And you're right, Patti, they don't yell and scream at the women. And so for the media to portray that and not show what these devil worshippers were doing was just a travesty. It really, really was a big injustice. So how often do you and your husband, Michael, go out to the abortion clinic? Once a week?
We've been out there twice. It's about an hour and a half drive from here, so we can't go that often.
Goodness.
But
wow.
We went week before last, and then we went last week. And then there's going to be another rally coming up in 2 weeks, and we'll be going for that. And that's when the bishop is going to be there.
Oh, that's amazing.
So,
well, I want to thank you for your courage and your commitment to Silent No More. And brothers and sisters, you know, if you know someone who's hurting from abortion, I'm going to give you a simple website, abortionforgiveness.com. Just go to abortionforgiveness.com. You can put in your zip code. You'll see where the nearest healing program is right in your own backyard. And if you want to read more testimonies like Patti's, go to abortiontestimony.com. And we have a whole search engine there. So you can read about a first trimester abortion, late term abortion, in the case of rape and incest, life of the mother. We have them all sorted there. And Patti will tell you, Patti just doesn't give her story here for it to stay here. Patti gave you her story here because she wants you to use it to save babies and save moms from abortion. Right, Patti?
Yep, you got it.
Okay. Well, Patti, thank you for joining me on Just Ask Janet. You're an amazing woman and a great gift to the Silent No More Awareness campaign. So we love having you. And it's even better now that you're in Florida. You're going to have to come down to Titusville and visit me soon, okay?
We will. And thank you, Janet.
God bless.
God bless.
Well, brothers and sisters, before you go, I'm wearing here, you probably can't see it too well, but this is one of our products here. It's a hoodie. Here, I'll show you the little hood. That's why they call it a hoodie. All right. And the back of this hoodie, this was designed by Brian Kemper from our youth division. In the back of the hoodie, it says, social justice begins in the womb. Social justice begins in the womb. First of all, it's still cold in a lot of parts of the country. Matter of fact, out in Colorado, they just had a major snowstorm. So this hoodie is kind of not nice, soft, and cozy. And in fact, I'm wearing it here, even though I'm in Florida, because here in the studio, they keep the air conditioning quite high. So I use this hoodie here at work too. It's available go to prolifeproducts.org. And you can see the hoodie is there. And also we have a lot of other products on special this month. This is the month of March, so you can check out our specials and do so at prolifeproducts.org. Well, thank you for joining us again on Just Ask Janet. Until next time, God bless.
I will be silent no more.